And good afternoon. I guess I could say good afternoon. It's now reached 12 noon. But I'd like to welcome you all to a very special conversation with Curtis. I'm Curtis Davenport, and here at Jazz Art Charlotte this weekend, we have Tenor Madness, which we are celebrating the music of some of the great tenor saxophonists of this and past eras with four of the finest, I can absolutely say, that are working in the business today. And we're just so honored to have them all with us for this conversation. So we're looking forward to a great conversation with them. So let me, for those of you who weren't here last night or maybe coming tonight, and lead a little preview before you get here, let me introduce our saxophonists to you. First, immediately to my left, we have Chelsea Baratz. To her left, we have Stacy Dillard. Then we have Mr. Tommy Morimoto. And last but not least, we have Brice Winston. So ladies and gentlemen, first of all, welcome to Charlotte.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here with us. By the way, just to let y'all know, as you need to use the microphones, just feel free to pick them up and grab them. They don't have to stay in the stand. We just want to make sure that everybody gets heard. So, all right, well, with all four of you here, first let's start to talk about the instrument itself. Let's talk about the idea of the tenor and what attracted you. I mean, there's the alto, the soprano, the baritone. I know I've heard some of you on some of those various instruments, but what is it about the tenor that really draws an attraction for you? I'll let anybody who'd like to start who's got an idea. I see Stacy already smiling, so I think he's got something to say already. So go ahead, brother, and you can grab that mic if you want.
I'm probably gonna say the same thing that everybody was probably gonna say.
Well, you got it first then.
That's why.
Yeah.
There's a vocal quality to it, you know, and it's a lot in the range of how people would talk or how people would, you know, even express whether it's some kind of excitement or whatever. That range is like right there because people don't know to talk like this all the time. You know what I mean? So
now there's something dropped on their foot.
but then the soprano for me is the same thing. So to get a little technical about it, the B flat instruments, they just sit better with me than the E flat instruments. I don't know why, but they just do.
All right, thank you for that.
Yeah, for me, I actually started on alto, and one of my first heavy influences was Cannonball Adderley, and I was learning a lot of stuff that he was playing when I was in high school. But as I was kind of moving into college, I was learning a lot of tenor solos on alto, which didn't really make sense anymore. And so just within a year or two of going to college, it just made sense for me to move to tenor. And I think I discovered all the great qualities of it as the years went on, like Stacy was saying, you know, the human voice qualities, just the different sounds that the tenor can make versus the seemingly limited number of sounds that the alto can, or that we can make on the alto. I just think about the history of the tenor, and you know, I can name, you know, 50 different sounds that cats have made on tenor versus alto. It's a more limited number of sounds.
Okay. And Chelsea. Yeah, you have to keep it out of the sand if you want. You don't have to keep putting it back.
I was gonna say exactly what Stacy said. It's the closest to the human voice, but also I came from like a tenor city, coming from Pittsburgh.
Oh yeah.
It's got much more of a heavy tenor tradition, so I always played all the saxophones, and I just always worked more on tenor. And I think moving to New York too, I mean, there's definitely a lot of alto players and a lot of tenor players and a lot of people doing original and creative stuff, but New York has a way of kind of filtering you into a role when it just comes to working. Not necessarily being an artist, but when it comes to working. So yeah, I feel like I've kind of been filtered into being a tenor player. But I love it, yeah. It's the channel and the vessel for what I want to be expressing, for sure.
And Tommy, we'd like to hear from you. We got to finish the quartet out now.
Like Brice, I started on alto saxophone, but when I was 14, my parents took me to go hear Sonny Rollins in concert.
Oh,
and I said, that's what I want to do. So,
oh yeah.
that's why I chose to play tenor saxophone. So.
Now, that's a tough hill to climb, man. Once you hear Nuke and that, I can see certainly how it could be an influence. I could also see how that's a very high bar to set. So since we on that subject now, since you've mentioned Nuke, and we'll talk about influences for all of you, who are some of your biggest influences, and what about these players attracted you to them?
Ooh, I gotta start.
Go
Since we're talking about Sonny Rollins, because I feel like I had a similar situation. Like a lot of people, when they start playing saxophone in like school band programs, will automatically start playing the alto saxophone. And when I was in middle school, I think 5th grade, I wanted to play in the jazz band, and there were no chairs open to play alto. So I got this old rusty musket Bundy, like metallic lacquer horn from my school. They literally called it the rusty musket. But my band teacher, Glenn Whalen, gave me a Sonny Rollins record, and it like changed my life for sure.
Can I ask which one it was? Just curious.
Saxophone Colossus.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah, and we ended up playing St. Thomas in jazz band that year, and it was just like learning about improvisation through the lens of playing the saxophone that early from somebody like Sonny. Because honestly, when I first started listening to jazz when I was that age, I was listening to a lot of Oscar Peterson, because Oscar Peterson was an amazing improviser and very linear and made the harmony make sense. So if you're just learning how to play changes and play bebop, like you're going to be really attracted to players like that who make sense. And a lot of people listen to Bird for that, but I mean, like, I never had that early intervention in like early middle school where somebody was like, no, you got to listen to Bird before you listen to Sonny Rollins. So like from the jump, Sonny was definitely one of my biggest influences.
Yeah. Okay. Who else would like to? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Along the same lines of where Chelsea just went, Sonny Rollins is one of many influences. We'll burn all the time if I'm sitting there naming all these names. But it's like a dual influence, because I got, not only was I influenced by the individuals, but it was something that I would, that kind of seemed like a universal soul, a universal spirit that like everybody that I consider to be influenced, they all had this, but they had their own unique way of being in that. You know what I mean? And I got influenced by it. I got attracted to that, and as well as the individuals that I was, so it's like, how do you do that? How do you do that? And, it's like, the more you reach out to pull this information in, it's like the more it's telling you got to reach in and pull it out. So that's the thing.
I like that.
Yeah. So that's that.
Okay.
I just want to respond to that
Yeah,
real
please
quick.
go ahead.
Since
Oh,
Stacy's
just a
out here,
conversation, yeah.
Stacy's out here talking about the Akashic field and shit. But it's definitely a continuum. And I gotta say, like, Stacy was one of those people for me when I moved to New York, and I saw that in Stacy being one of those amazing saxophone players and creators and writers, and like has always been a very like giving person to the young people who come into the scene and being an inspiration. So yeah, the continuum is real. I love you, bro.
You back, baby. And y'all too, right? Oh.
Yeah. Just a bunch of love up here on the stage. So go ahead, Brice, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned before that one of my first influences was Cannonball. My dad had grown up in Chicago and had seen a lot of the greats play. He had seen Miles Davis's sextet come through with Train and Wynton Kelly and all them cats, and Basie Band and the Ellington Band. So he knew what was happening. We had a cabinet full of great records, and he knew who to kind of steer me towards. But that also meant, not steering me towards certain people. He had his own biases, So I did start with Cannonball and quickly moved to Sonny was one of my tops, Sonny Rollins, John Coltrane, and Joe Henderson, and, just countless others. But kind of all through that, one of my dad's favorite musicians was Miles. And I think, he's been a heavy influence on me conceptually in the way that he plays, his creativity, his ability to come up with his sound and just have such a unique sound. to me, that's what I'm after, looking for that unique thing. I don't know if I'll ever get that, but that's what I'm aspiring to do. But, like they were talking about, our influences are all around us all the time. I was, in New Orleans kind of in the early days of Nicholas Payton, and like he was influencing me and all these other New Orleans characters. So it's hard to pinpoint exactly where some of the most poignant pieces of information come from. Sometimes things happen just in passing very quickly that are profoundly impactful on how we play and how we think. So I have to credit all of my New Orleans influences as well through that. So, but.
All right, Tommy.
I love all the tenors on say Blue Note Records from the classic period, 1500 series, and Prestige from around that era. But I specifically love the guys that were known as the tough tenors, like Lockjaw Davis,
Johnny Griffin.
Come
on now.
Gene Ammons,
Talk about language,
Arnett
man.
Cobb.
Oh yeah.
Talk about it.
Guys,
Preach, brother.
Dexter Gordon.
Well,
And guys who could stand on stage with those guys and hold their own. Sonny Stitt, specifically the tough tenors. But again, I'm influenced by all the tenors and musicians, hopefully.
okay. It's good, Ron. We can have this and we can go as fast. And if anybody's got anything to say, like what Stacy had to say after when Chelsea was speaking, please, by all means, jump right in. We don't have to be stilted about this. This is just mainly, it's a hang conversation. So whenever you got something to say, please feel free. So that's it. I just, next, at least question I want to throw out is the idea of just choosing to be a professional musician, because we know there's at some point in life where you say, well, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to do anything else. This is how I'm going to make my living. This is how I'm going to make my life. I'm going to be a professional musician. What, for any of you, and I'll let anybody start on that, what made you decide to go in this direction and really devote your life to this music?
Might I go first?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
All right. I actually have a really poignant story about this. When I was in maybe 9th or 10th grade, I had my high school band teacher. And he was like a real working musician outside of being a high school band teacher. And he was the one who like introduced me to the Pittsburgh jazz scene. He introduced me to Sean Jones and all this stuff when I was in high school. He told me to go to my first jam sessions. And my parents were like, you can't do this as a job. It's not a job. You won't have job security and health insurance and stuff, because my parents are physicians. So. And at that young age, my band teacher told me, he said, you don't choose this, it chooses you. So I don't know anything about choosing it. All I've known from like that point in my life is having faith in it and working hard enough and trust it. I don't know about that saying, if you take care of the music will take care of you. That goes into some more deep, complex issues about, problems we have working in the scene. But I mean, the essence of that, I believe, is true. So.
Yeah, I don't remember like coming to a moment like, this is what you're gonna do, what you're gonna do, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that. The closest thing to that is probably like early college when I thought I wanted to play some basketball, but the music was getting good to me. So I thought about it. I was like, by the time I'm 40 years old, I'll probably be like in my prime with this music thing. And then with basketball, I'll be retired already.
Huh. Good.
So I was like, what I'm gonna do?
Unless you're Vince Carter.
So you could say that was the moment, but it really wasn't, because then 10 years go by, you say, oh wow, I can't believe I'm a musician. 15 years, wow, I'm still a musician. Like, I have these weird conversations with myself like that, saying, wow, I can't believe I'm living in New York City doing this. Especially because like the rest of my family, like no one does music. It's just me. I'm like the oddball sticking out here. So, yeah, I don't remember.
Tommy, Brice, got anything on that one?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I loved the music so much, when I was coming up. I didn't really think about anything besides playing the music. I know my mom was, like, how are you gonna make money doing this, And I was like, I don't really care. I'm going to school. I just love this music so much. But the reality of that kind of hits you, And after college, I ended up playing in an R&B and blues band on Bourbon Street in New Orleans for quite a long time. And it was soul sucking. It was cool. I was playing my horn for people on a nightly basis and having a good time. There was a connection there. However, it was not what I was trained to do. And I got to a certain point doing that where I was like, okay, I saved up enough so I could put a little down payment on a little house in New Orleans. And I was like, okay, this is it. I'm quitting this blues band. And if I can't make it as a jazz musician in the next several months, I'm done. I'm going to have to find something else. And I feel like that decision was important in that I kind of told the universe, this is what I want to do. I defined to the universe, this is what I want to do. And, through the grace of whoever you want to say, through the grace of God, I got enough opportunities. Victor Goins gave me a teaching opportunity down in Florida, and Donald Edwards, great jazz drummer, was giving me some opportunities to play down in New Orleans, and I was doing some playing with Nicholas. And so pretty soon things just started to happen. But I feel like that decision was important for me, just to let the universe know that I'm ready for this. This is what I want to do.
And Tommy?
Well, when I was a teenager, again, my parents took me to hear a lot of the jazz greats like Benny Golson, Wayne Shorter, Teddy Edwards, and a lot of the great musicians like Jimmy Smith, Ahmad Jamal, Stanley Turrentine, what's going on, the cats who were around. And a lot of people told me, be a musician, it's impossible. But I saw these people.
Yeah.
And they did it.
Yeah.
And they did the thing. So I just said to myself, it is possible. Not easy, but it's possible.
All right, let's keep on, kind of the same idea, because for any of the four of you who are not familiar, one of our main missions at Jazz Art Charlotte is our education. We have our education group, we have our bands with the young people, and a lot of them come in for a lot of training and to learn more about the music. And some of them are looking to be professional musicians and some are not. But I'd like to go to all four of you and just find out any kind of advice you have, because I'm sure some of our young musicians who are not here today are going to be watching this. If they're not watching it now live, they'll be watching later. So let's talk about any advice you have for up and coming young musicians who want to, say, follow in your footsteps. Any advice you have for them?
I can start off. I would say, first of all, to acknowledge that, just because something works for one person or a certain person that you admire or want to model yourself after has a certain path, that doesn't mean that that's going to work for you. And if that doesn't work, don't be discouraged. And everybody learns and finds their own success in different ways. So just be open. Be open to all the different ways that people can show you how to find success and tap into this music. And then for me, when I was really young, the biggest thing for me was going out to jam sessions and having a local scene to participate in. That was the most influential thing that I did. You can learn the same songs in the classroom, but there's nothing like getting the experience on the bandstand. I'm from Pittsburgh. We have a really familial scene there. And one of the biggest parts of our scene when I was growing up, and still to this day, is Roger Humphrey's jam session. Yeah. So he would send us home learning new tunes every week, and you would just get that experience of being a part of a community and having all the different musicians in that community give you advice and different ways to learn things and different ways to absorb the music. So I strongly urge people who are trying to participate in music in a classroom setting to supplement that by going out and participating in either your local community or the music communities where you're traveling, because that's also really fun.
I'm gonna get straight to like on horn
Go ahead.
things.
Go ahead.
I'll say to young people, practice spontaneity a lot. Practice when you pick up your horn, play whatever, I don't care what it is, a sound, a phrase, or whatever. You just, play it. Practice doing that. Also, record yourself scatting. Transcribe that. Transcribe that. Watch what it do for you. And watch how you see yourself, separate, like going inward with it. Watch what I'm telling you. And I think I had a third one. Spontaneity. Transcribe.
Okay.
That's good enough.
Or if you think of it, we can come back to you.
I hit you back.
It doesn't have to be the end. But so, Tommy, Brice, anything for young musicians, or maybe even advice to your younger self that you would have liked to have known you were saying?
I would say if you're thinking about becoming a professional musician, you should try to seek out a mentor who is a professional, and find out what it means to be professional. For me, or learning about being a professional, or good advice would be is to keep your word and treat every gig as important as the most important gig you could think of. And
All right, good ringtone.
giant steps.
Yeah.
And things like showing up early and doing the necessary homework for whatever the gig requires, and conduct, even when you're not on the bandstand, is important. So I guess that's what I have to say on that subject.
Yeah, I think these were all really good points. Very important points. I would add on to that, practice now. As in, don't put it off until later. You think you're busy now? Just wait. When you get into college, when you get into your life, get married and have kids and, got all kinds of responsibilities, the time gets smaller and smaller. So practice now, practice early. And just try and find a way to work it into however busy your life is. I had one student, he was going to one of the hardest high schools in Tucson. It's a nationally ranked high school. And so he would show up to the school before they even opened the school at about 5 a.m. And that's when he would get his practice done. So he was dedicated. So sometimes it takes that level of dedication going, beyond what someone else around you might be doing, just to get ahead. So practice now, practice early, transcribe. The information's in those records. It's there. So listen, not just to your instrument, but listen to all the instruments. Learn a whole album instead of one song. I mean, we're kind of in a different time now with how we listen to music. We stream one song. We don't necessarily even know, what album it's related to or whatever. I'm a huge proponent of learning albums, learning who's on the album, listening to all the parts, listen to the piano, the drums, the bass, the vibraphone, everything, that's on that album, and keep asking yourself questions. Why did they play what they play? How does it relate to everything else on the record? Just understand it in a holistic sense.
Okay. I got a few individual questions. Brice, while I still have you on the mic, let's talk about at least the association that most of our audience is going to know you from, and it's how I first discovered and became very impressed with your playing, your work with Terrence Blanchard. How did you first begin to work with Mr. Blanchard, and some of the takeaways you've had from that time?
So I met Terrence in New Orleans at a jam session, which, Yeah, Chelsea, I agree. That's one of the most important things that we can do, just socializing, networking, trying our stuff, falling, getting back up and everything. So that's how I met Terrence. There was a place down in New Orleans called Charlie B's, and he happened to be there. We were at a jam session, and I can't remember how long after that it was, but he was doing a movie score in New Orleans. I think it was Bojangles. I'm not recalling right now. And so he called me and asked me to play on it. And of course, I jumped at the opportunity.
Yeah.
And when I was there, Ed Simon was playing piano, and Troy Davis was playing drums, and David Polf was playing bass. And I kind of knew them from New Orleans. And Ed really dug my playing, and he was like, "Hey, maybe we can get Brice on some gigs." And that's kind of how the ball started rolling. And it wasn't long after that he asked me to join the band, which was, exciting and terrifying for me. The first thing that we did was like a recording session in New York at Sony Studios with Dave Holland playing bass and Branford playing saxophone, and I'm asking myself, what am I doing?
Right?
No pressure, right? I really had to talk my way through it. Like, what am I doing here? And the thing I just came to through all that was just like, man, all you can do is what you do, and you can just try to do your best. And, this is just going to be a learning opportunity. Whatever you can't do, you need to figure out how to do, and you need to keep the gig, because it was my dream. It was one of my dreams to play in a band like that with someone so great who had played with so many great people. And so, that was the beginning of a long relationship that I guess continues to this day. The last gig I was supposed to have with him was March 2020. We were supposed to do a thing in Hollywood that obviously did not happen. But I toured with him for something like 15 years, which, in this day and age was kind of unheard of. There weren't a lot of bands stuck together for long periods of time. So I was there through several incarnations of that band with so many great musicians. So, the lessons I learned from that are just endless. I can't even begin to say how much I learned from Terrence himself and all the musicians that he ever had in his band. I've had opportunities, like I mentioned, Dave Holland and Herbie Hancock, produced one of his records, and we got a chance to play with him. And Ron Carter, came through, and we recorded on another one of his records. It's like, these are my heroes, I'm like, again, pinching myself. Is this real? That was my dream. So yeah, just so much stuff I got from that association.
Okay. And Chelsea, question directly for you. Now, obviously, as a woman in this business, you're still, unfortunately, to a lot of people, still considered to be a novelty, a woman instrumentalist, I should say. So something I guess has been a big frustration of mine, the fact that there are a lot of people who still say, "Oh, wow, isn't that cute? A woman playing saxophone," or what have you. Have you experienced any kind of difficulties or challenges breaking into this business or getting yourself to be taken seriously as a female instrumentalist?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Absolutely. If you're going to put yourself out here and work in the industry at large, you're absolutely going to be objectified. And sometimes that's like part of the gig, because when you really think about the entertainment industry at large, not being a jazz musician, when you think about the entertainment industry at large, everybody is very focused on their image and their body image and their style and how much their clothes cost and everything. That's what it is. But you're putting on a show,
Yeah.
So there's a lot of intersection of people being what I would quote unquote call Hollywood, for better or for worse, and the industry. And I'm not hating on it, because I think that intersection means that like everybody in the industry who's trying to be an artist right now, like has a good sense of style, period. So I don't think people should get it confused with actual objectification, but like absolutely there's going to be blatant objectification you face. I don't feel like I've seen that overtly in the jazz scene. And yeah, I mean, men like this on gigs like this, and they're absolutely wonderful and respectful and have been, you know, people like Stacy are great mentors to me over the years. People like Brice have always been great inspirations to me from afar over the years. And yeah, you just got to keep it in balance. You got to have a strong sense of self. It's going to happen in the world regardless, whether you play music or not, you know? But I mean, I think we're all kind of cute.
I think so too, yes. Let's talk, Mr. Morimoto. Now, I know you went to North Carolina School of the Arts, am I correct on that?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Then went to the New York scene, but now, are you originally from North Carolina? Just, I'm asking, I don't know.
I went to high school in the North Carolina School of the Arts,
Okay.
Winston-Salem.
Okay.
My family lived in Matthews.
Okay.
So,
Okay, I was wondering if you weren't, how you ended up here, but that would make sense if your family was in Matthews, that you did end up at the NC School of the Arts. Talk about a little bit about your decision to go to the New York scene. And just from what I've seen of your background since you've been there, you've done a lot of varied work. What attracted you, say, to the New York scene versus, say, Chicago or New Orleans or other places?
I felt like I wanted to go to New York because that's where the masters are all coming through, and a lot of them live there. And I felt like that's the best chance I'd have to have access to some of these people that sometimes don't have, get a chance to speak with in other parts of the country as much, because they're coming through these same clubs in New York City. So also just the history of New York and the tradition and the standard of excellence that people hold in New York. I wanted to be a part of that.
Let me ask for all four of you. You've obviously survived the last couple of years and the pandemic and whatnot. I know when a lot of musicians had to get very creative about making a living when that natural wellspring of gigs just pretty much through no fault of yours dried up. Talk about some of the things that you did to keep it going. This is for any of you. Talk about some of the things you did to keep it going when those gigs weren't there for that period of almost a couple of years. How difficult was it, and what were some of the things you did? Anybody who'd like to speak about it can. Stacy, go ahead.
It was actually not as difficult as I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
I don't think I can speak for everybody also, but I did a lot of, just getting together with a couple fellas, play outside in the park where you can still have a distance and everything. Just doing that, and then the whole Zoom thing just took off, like remote lessons and all that stuff. So that was cool because I work with Vermont Jazz Center. They have a camp every year, and I would be there. Well, no, it'd be over now, but I would have been there like a couple days ago, whatever. And they did that remote, and then other things started happening like that too. And then more and more, like playing outdoors, because it's like everybody's thirsty and everybody's starving. People want to play it, and people want to hear it. So, like, when you're able to put those two things together, I was like part responsible for a venue that's in Long Island City, Queens. It's called the Culture Lab,
Okay.
and they got live music there, and it's still going on. But it started from us just kind of like messing around one Sunday. In the back of this like 57 Ford pickup truck, and we would just set up the drums and we would roll around different parts of Queens and stop, play. Back up, roll, stop, play. So people doing the lab, it was like more like a marketplace, not for the ours was indoors.
Yeah.
So they had all the space outside. Can you park that truck and do this here on a Sunday? So we did that. A bunch of people came out. huge parking lot, so it's a lot of space. You know, like, wow, we making some decent money doing this. Okay, can you do it again? Sure.
Yeah.
You know, and then it just turned into this whole thing, so where it's like music like 4 or 5 days out of the week. Now, there, you know, so sometimes 2 or 3 bands. So, you know, those kind of things I was lucky enough to stumble into, as well as be around people that weren't like totally afraid to be around anybody else. You know, so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to shed because I can, because ain't nothing else to do. Oh yeah, and dog sitting. Kill him with that. Come on now.
Dog
Yeah.
sitting, okay, by any means necessary. Anybody else want to talk about that same subject?
I feel like if the gig calendar is not looking how you want it to be, then it's time to get in the shed and work on your skills and get out to jam sessions and play and show people what you can do and to get hired, you know, so, yeah. That's,
Yeah, Stacy, I think you're right. You know, need is the mother of invention, and so a lot of new things came into existence, you know, throughout the last couple of years. And yeah, for me, I was and am making my living, you know, largely on education. So if it wasn't for video conferencing, I would have been in trouble. And so, yeah, thank God for that. We have a school in Tucson called the Tucson Jazz Institute. I'm one of the co-owners of that school, and I was teaching for the University of Arizona. And so all that stuff moved online, and we were able just to keep it going through the summer and then start classes outdoors. Thank God for Tucson weather. We were able to go all through the winter and everything. We were outdoors, you know, spaced out, kids, you know, 8 feet apart or something, trying to make an ensemble out of that. But we made it work, and persevered. Music must go on.
I'll chime in with the fact that I was one of those people Stacy was talking about who was terrified of being around most people. Not everybody. I was. And like, but living in New York City, we're in one of the most population dense cities in the world, and there were literally like viral vectors in our scene. There were outbreaks within places in our scene, and I just couldn't deal with that personally. I had my own bubble of people though, like what Stacy was talking about, having a group of people that you can get together with. I was working with people who were building their own studios. I was working with people who were live streaming. I ended up moving into my own apartment and building my own studio and doing a lot of stuff in my house. But I think outside of the collective of people coming together and making work situations happen, we had to just come to terms with the fact that there was no work. And a lot of us in New York were really lucky to get pretty decent unemployment. And I did stuff that I hadn't done in years, like take care of my health and go visit my family. And I got a really good therapist. And like, I did some healing that I didn't know needed to be done, because the truth is, like, a lot of musicians who are really caught up in the hustle culture get really burnt out after a number of years. And I think it's just important to remember, if you're going to be in a global pandemic, it's okay to lose your shit a little bit, because, you know, you're gonna come back stronger. And I don't care, it doesn't matter whether you're dealing with a pandemic or whether you're dealing with an injury or having surgery, or you're dealing with a major life event or a loss or something like that. You gotta know that the process of coming out of that is you're going to come back stronger. Always, every time. So no matter what you did, you know, we're here today.
We're glad for that. So before I turn it over, I know we have a few audience members. I'm going to give them the opportunity to ask questions if they have one, but I'm going to have a little put it out into the universe thing, you know. Talking about people, and all of you have played with some of the best in the industry, some true legends, but I'd like to find out, is there anybody you'd like to play with or work with that you haven't had the opportunity yet? And just, you know, we'll put their names out there. So, hey, maybe if they stumble across this, you know, they'll give you a shout. Anybody you'd love to play with but haven't had the opportunity yet?
Kurt Rosenwinkel.
Okay, Kurt Rosenwinkel. You can say it a little bit louder. It seemed like you. Kurt Rosenwinkel. Okay.
Let me be clear.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, there's a story behind this one, I'm feeling.
No, absolutely. I love Kurt's playing. I love his writing. I love his musicality. I would love an opportunity to play with Kurt. I mean, there's so many of them out there. I'd love to play with Jack DeJohnette at some point. I mean, he's one of my favorite cats, you know. Man, Brad knows that. I mean, I could just keep going on. I'm going to stop talking.
Okay. If you want, you don't have to, but go ahead, Stacy.
My mate, Michelle Ndegeocello.
Yes.
Oh.
That's the target right there. I'm like,
Nice.
I see you. And I'm gonna leave it right there.
All right.
Yep.
I don't know if anybody's gonna laugh at this, but I'm gonna say Bob James. And I got a chance to share the stage with him a little bit at the Blue Note earlier in the year, but honestly, is like a really amazing human being and artist, and his songs are amazing.
Nothing wrong with that. Now, I know a lot of people, denigrate Bob, for a lot of the more commercial aspects of his music, but under that is a truly talented cat, so it's not about,
Said, I love smooth jazz.
yeah, hey, there you go.
There it is.
There it is, yeah. So nothing wrong with that. No laughter in that one to play with Bob James.
And when it comes to that genre, like who does it better,
Well, yeah, he's one of the longer Grover and everything, some of the fathers of it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the same word. Go ahead.
I'd love to work with the drummer, Alvin Queen.
Yeah, okay.
He's in Geneva, but I would
Yeah.
love to work with him. And also I'd love to work with George Benson, Stevie Wonder, maybe Kenny Burrell. Any of the music greats who are still around, I'd love to work with.
Can I say Stevie too? Shit.
Yeah, of course. That's on everybody's list. I don't even play it. I want to work with Stevie, man. So.
Who wouldn't think it twice?
Okay, now, you see humble brag over here. I got to play with him twice.
So that's why I ain't able, 'cause I ain't snubbing nobody. I got a chance to do a lot of wish list stuff,
Okay.
But
They say, blessed are you among men.
But Michelle, I'll see you soon.
Okay, so let's turn it over to the audience. Do we have any questions from audience members? Something that you would like to ask of our folks here? Something that you would like to know? Okay, yes, sir.
I know, Brice, you sort of already talked a little bit, but can you talk about your involvement with education, with teaching, and do you all teach and just your involvement with jazz education?
I've taught at jazz camp a little bit, and I've taught private lessons, but I haven't really been in the education sector too much. But I mean, I think a lot of women in jazz are involved with like advocacy for women, so there's some crossover in doing advocacy work because it can be like a controversial environment for women. But no, I'm not a teacher. I have all the respect in the world for the teachers, but it's not my bag.
Once upon a time, I taught 4th and 5th grade at PS 130 in the Bronx.
Wow.
That was kind of cool. And but it was, it was anyway, I guess that later. I mainly like to do, I also do adjunct work at the new school. I was doing some things up at Baratz College, for a little while. I do a lot of private lessons and workshops, seminar type things like that. I'm also, now, as mentioned earlier, I'm on faculty with Vermont Jazz Center. So that's about it for me. And I get around that way, especially, just being in the city, somebody rolling through town. Hey, can I get a lesson before I go? Sure you can. So a lot of, I'm here. I'm like, if you got the question and if I can answer, ask me. So that's me in education.
Tommy, Brice, anything?
I teach lessons and give clinics here and there, but I haven't been too much in the education scene myself, jazz education. But I think it's great for people that do study music in school, and the more you know, the better. So, for me, the jazz education has really been just on the bandstand, and like I said earlier, finding a mentor and learning about how to go about things to get the best musical results. So, it's,
Brice, anything additional?
Well, I got into education fairly early, teaching in New Orleans before I had left that scene, and I was hesitant to do it. And I remember going to Ellis Marsalis before I was going to start doing it. I was going to start teaching some students at NOCA and Dillard and different places in New Orleans. I was like, man, I don't feel like I'm qualified to be on the other side of this line. You know, I'm still a student, you know. And he was very encouraging. He was just like, man, just do it. You just have to step over the line, and you learn a hell of a lot about what you actually know by doing the teaching, which has been clearly the case. And so I've gotten very deep into teaching over a number of years. At the time I left New Orleans, I was teaching at University of New Orleans, Dillard University, NOCA, which is the New Orleans Center for Creative Arts. And then as I moved away from New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina, quickly got into education there and formed the school that I'm a co-owner of, called the Tucson Jazz Institute, back in 2008. That's middle and high school students. And then I got brought on as adjunct faculty for the University of Arizona, and just last year they asked me to take over a class at Pima College. So that, in addition to like my private studio teaching students, it's a lot of teaching, and I feel that it's a great responsibility to be in front of these students, and I want to make sure that I'm giving them the best information, the most accurate information that I can. And that has changed drastically over the number of years that I've been teaching. I think I do things very, very differently now than I did 20 years ago, which I think is a good thing. I think if I wasn't evolving as a teacher, I'm providing the service that I need to be providing. So it's an evolving art, and something that I'm very passionate about and feel deeply about.
Okay, any other? Yes, sir.
One of the things you didn't say when you were talking about why you like the tenor is that the range of the instrument is so broad that you can really develop your own voice, I think, on the tenor more than most other instruments. It's hard to believe that Sonny Rollins and Stan Getz are playing the same instrument. So my question is, how did you develop your sound? How did that happen?
You got to realize that all the greats, Sonny Rollins, Coltrane, blah, 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 any name you can name, just got to realize the one thing that they did, and then you do it. And that is, they all took advantage of the one thing that they could do that nobody else could do, and that's to be themselves. So you gotta, this music thing is we gotta remember, the person aspect is huge on this. It ain't all about studying just the notes and the music and you gotta know you. You gotta get to know you for real. That's where your sound is.
Which is why I like jazz as opposed to other.
Because we can pull out a saxophone right now. It could be a saxophone for somebody in the audience, pass it down the line. We all gonna sound different on that same setup.
Yeah.
That's how you do that. Because if you're just busy, like she kind of talked about, if something don't work, if it worked for this person, and if it don't work that way for you, it's kind of example with, like what kind of mouthpiece you playing on? What beats you playing on? This, that, and the other. Kind of don't matter. Just find what feel right for you.
Exactly.
Don't worry about what I'm doing. Find what feel right. And that's how you do it. That's how you do it.
I got to respond to that because I was literally just talking with Brice and Tommy about this last night. We were like talking about mouthpieces and reeds and stuff. And I've gone from like two of the almost like polar opposite setups lately. I went from playing a Sios mouthpiece, which is a 3D printed mouthpiece, to playing like a gold-plated metal mouthpiece. And are you a saxophone player?
I'm in the audience.
You're what?
I'm in the audience.
Oh, you're in the audience? Okay. What you don't know about saxophone mouthpieces, when you go from like a metal mouthpiece versus most other materials, like the size on the outside is very different. Like it's a much bigger on the outside to go into like almost like a little bullet. And people were asking me that all the time when I played a Sios mouthpiece, because this is a company that makes custom mouthpieces for people. They call you up and they say, what do you want in your tone? And they'll send you like 3 mouthpieces. And on the 3rd try, they'll have like the perfect custom piece for you. And with me, I met them in person and they sent it to me on the 2nd try. And what I found when I was playing that mouthpiece is all these people were like, what mouthpiece are you playing? Where can I get your mouthpiece? And I was like, don't. Because you won't sound like, and they have all these artist mouthpieces. They have some of the dopest young sax players on their roster, like Tavon Pennicott and Godwin Louis, and a bunch of other really amazing sounding people. And if you go and try their artist model mouthpiece, you won't sound like them. And now I'm at the point from being around people like Stacy who have put that approach into the air of finding your sound. Like no matter what mouthpiece I'm playing on or what setup I'm playing on, as long as I'm comfortable, I will sound like myself. And I think that goes for all sax players. Like don't chase that. If you're a saxophone player listening and you're chasing somebody's setup, like stop it right now. Stop chasing somebody's setup. Stop trying to copy John Coltrane's setup or this setup or that setup, and start finding what's really comfortable for you. You know? And shout out to Theo Wane, because I'm really comfortable with that. I love it.
There you go. Anything, gentlemen, on, yeah,
Thank you.
doesn't matter either way.
I would say for sound, for me, I had to try to copy people, and one of my teachers, Lou Backen, really showed me a lot about sound, and he studied this breathing concept from Clark Terry. And for me, the equipment does matter for what I'm hearing, but that's the whole thing of sound is what you hear, and you have to play what you hear. And if you can find the equipment that'll achieve that, that'll help in my experience. And having your own sound that's very important in jazz music.
I think there's the physical aspect of sound, and there's the conceptual aspect of sound. And I think all of what makes you who you are is a combination of choices, either conscious or unconscious. And I was always kind of the unconscious one, although we're drawn to certain people. I was drawn to certain players and copied what they played, and at the same time, you're copying the notes that they're playing, you're copying their nuances and their sound and all of those kind of things. And so I remember talking to Branford about this long time ago. You know, I didn't know what to do with transcribed solos, you know. And so he was talking to us about, you know, just all of these different things. You know, there's always the worry, oh, I don't want to sound, you know, like this person or this person. I want to sound like myself. And as we, you know, learn several different people, we're human. We're never going to sound exactly like a certain person. And we're going to process all of those different people into a collage of all of those things. We're not going to take everything from one person, but we'll take a lot of things from all of them, and hopefully that'll end up being who we are. And that was kind of my way of putting my playing together. I think there are other people in history that have been more conscious about the choices that they make and how they put their sound together, conscious choices of things to do, and also conscious choices of things not to do, that were people that were contemporaries of theirs doing those particular things. And Miles comes to mind as I'm talking about this. You know, he was a contemporary of Dizzy Gillespie. I feel like, I mean, I would love to talk to Miles about that. Like, you know, what were the conscious parts of your choices, given that time and you putting your sound together, because it seemed to go in a pretty different direction than what than what Dizzy was doing. More of a minimalist kind of style, very, very conscious choices. So I'd love to talk to him about that. Unfortunately, I can't.
Any other questions? Well, before, I do have one last go around just from a commerce perspective, so people can know about anything you've got coming up, any of your music that's out brand new or something that you're working on now that folks can be expecting to hear sometime in the future. This is a chance to tell us about what you got coming up. Okay.
Well, Chelsea and I were saying yesterday, she said she was working on something that feels like her next first record. And I feel the same way, like my distance in between my projects is so long. So I think it's time for me to buckle down and get a new record done. So, yeah.
Okay.
I'll go. I am working on a new record, and it will be out sometime in the next probably year, but I'm going to be releasing some singles first. And like one thing I've always done this, but I really got directed to work on it more during the pandemic because I think it was more palatable for the neighbors, was working on my vocals. So
Okay.
I got some vocal stuff for you guys coming down the pipeline.
Look out now.
But yeah, I'm on Bandcamp. Find me on Bandcamp. I have a little single up there called The Promise. And yeah,
Cool.
find me on all the socials.
Okay, there you go. Where else now? Even if you don't have, go ahead, Tommy, first.
I recently recorded a couple months ago with a bass player composer in New York, a man named Santi Debriano.
Yeah.
A record coming out in the fall called with his band called The Orchestra, Bembe. So that's what I have coming out. And then at some point I'd like to release a record of my own, but not currently.
Okay. Anything? Okay.
Stacy don't want to say he got mad records though, and go listen to his records.
Bad things,
Stop it.
Still listening to that, right?
I was listening to it this morning.
Yes, sir.
I have a question. To piggyback on the evolution and identity. If you could choose 2 words to describe your style when you were younger, and your identity when you were younger, versus your style and identity now, what would be those 2 words? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Your style and identity when you were just starting out versus who you are now today, sitting on stage in this present moment. Would you have 2 words to describe that?
What's a I'm trying to say, like, searching, that, and see, it's two ain't gonna do it.
That's hard.
Like,
Go on a couple of
green, searching. Now, ripe, searching.
I mean, that's it. I was gonna say like
That's about it.
naive but confident when I was young, and now confident and more confident. And yeah, still searching. I mean, you couldn't have said it better. But that's like an SAT question. That's good.
That's good.
Go ahead, Tommy. It looked like you were about to say something earlier, so go ahead,
I
man.
feel like I know less. I'd say there's more influences
Yeah.
for 2 words than when I started.
Yeah, that's really hard. Man, so many words come to mind. Maybe angsty, unsure when I was a kid. Now, more sure, exploring, I guess. That's hard, man. That's a hard question. Good one, though.
Okay. All right, and at that, we will, because I think we are at the top of the hour. So we just want to say, if you're watching this live right now, or if you're catching this before the evening of August 13th, 2022, know that these 4 fine tenor players will be with us for 2 more shows here tonight at the Stage Door Theater in the Jazz Room. We have shows at 7 p.m. and 9:15 p.m. Tickets and other information at the Blumenthal box office or Blumenthal website, and also at our website, thejazzarts.org. So once again, a very, very big thank you to all of you, to Chelsea Baratz, to Stacy Dillard, Tommy Morimoto, and Brice Winston. Thank you all for sharing with us and with the audience today, and looking forward to more great things from all of you tonight. And on behalf of all of us at Jazz Art Charlotte, my name is Curtis Davenport, Kurt Jazz as always, and we will see you soon. Have a great day, everyone.